Hello, my name is Corgus. Today I'm going to be showing you the basics of Scratch. So here you can see the website, and so the URL to get to here is scratch.mint.edu. So the first thing you want to do is click up here, create. So you can see this editor here. You can close tutorials, and so you will see this. So it might seem a bit confusing at first, but I will show you what all this means. The basics of how code works in this. So, in the center here, there is this big box that is completely empty. So yeah, this is where your code is going to go, and then this code will run based on certain things, which I will get to later in the video. So, on the left here, there's a bunch of blocks here. You can scroll through them, and then there's also a bunch of sections here. Basically, you can drag blocks out into this big space, and then you can move them back in. Just drag them back into the toolbox to remove them. So on the right here, on the top right, you can see how there's this stage here. And so this is where everything that you have created will be shown. So all of the blocks that are being run will affect anything in this area. And so there's this green flag, which is used to start the project, and then this red stop sign, which stops all of the code. And so there's also these buttons, which are just like make it smaller or larger, and then also put it into full screen. So then below that, there is this, which is just a panel for where the sprite is, like the size, if it's showing, direction, and also the name. And then below that, there is all of the sprites in your game. So you can add them down here. You can upload them. You can choose a random one, like I just did, and then that'll be put into your game. Or you can also choose one or draw one yourself. And then there's also the background here. And so you can put code here. And so you can also go into backdrops here. And then these are going to be all of the backgrounds that you use. There's also a drawing menu in all sprites. And then you can see these costumes that you can switch between. And so there's also one here in backgrounds. So that'll just like change the backgrounds. Like if I switch to this box and then drag it around, then that'll be the box in the background you can see here. So then you can just delete that. There are several different tools here. So there's also the sounds tab. By default, most things have a pop sound, which is just this. But some sprites have other sounds, like the cat by default has a meow sound instead of a pop sound, which I will play now. So yeah, that is all of the tabs. So now I will get into how code is run in Scratch. So if we go back to code, so in events here, these are where all of your code is going to start. So like when green flag clicked, when space key pressed, when the sprite clicked, all of these will run when you do a certain thing. There is no code in it, so it's not really doing anything, but these are going to be where you start your code depending on an input. So usually you use when green flag clicked, just because that's when you start the project, but in some instances you might want to use like when I receive, or like when the sprite clicked, when space key pressed. It really depends on what you're doing. So then in control, these have some pretty useful loops. So if statements are useful because you can check whether something is true. Like for example, if something is equal to something else, then whatever code is in here will run. Or you could also have like if key space pressed, or if it's touching something or a color. That can be useful. And then back in control, there's also these loops like repeats however many times, and also forever loops. Forever loops are useful especially for like movement scripts or checking to see if like a key is pressed constantly rather than using this input, just because that can be useful for smoothing. So that is a couple basic things, but there are also some other pretty basic things too that you'll want to know. For example, in the motion tab, so moving 10 steps is just moving 10 pixels in the direction that the sprite is facing. And then turning whatever degrees is pretty self-explanatory, it just turns it around. And also moving 10, moving -10 here. So then you can do go to random position, so it'll just go somewhere random. And then there's also like go to a position. And then some other ones too that I usually don't use, but this is changing X and changing Y, or setting X and setting Y. That can be useful if you don't want to use the go to X, Y, because you can change one at a time, or you can set one at a time. So how X and Y work: X is the left to right, right to left, this, and then Y is up and down, and 0, 0 is the very center of the screen. So if I do like go to X0, Y0, that is the very center of the screen. So it goes positive right and negative left, and then positive up and negative down. So I think that's also pretty self-explanatory, but some coding languages will use the top left, or potentially even the bottom left, as the origin point, or 0, 0. But Scratch uses the center of the screen as 0, 0, so yeah. Then there's also the looks tab, which is just like you can make it say something for a certain amount of time, or just say it for an indefinite amount of time. And like switching costumes, which is just like that or that. And there's also changing the size, or setting the size, changing the color, or different effects that there are here, showing and hiding it. Then making it go to the front layer, which is useful when you have multiple sprites, but you want one to be on top of the other all the time. And below that there's the sounds, which I was talking about before, and then you... So these are pretty similar, except that starting sound will allow the code to run as soon as you start playing it, but playing sound will start the code immediately after it's done. And then stopping all sounds just stops all the sounds that are playing. Change pitch effect by 10. This is just like different effects. And then clear sound effects, which is just set all of them to defaults. Then there's the volumes. Yeah, so then in sensing, if there is a certain input detected, like the space key, or also if like mouse down, there's also asking, and then also if something is touching a certain color, or if a certain color is touching another color, and also if it's touching like the mouse, and then some other useful things too. Operators, these are just math, or like joining different variables, which variables, right here, basically you can create variables, you can delete variables, you can do pretty much anything with them. They're just stored numbers, or stored like letters, names, whatever. And so there's also my blocks. Basically you can create blocks. Most people don't use them until you get into more complex things, just because you don't have to use them. But they are definitely useful. I will probably get into that in a later video. So those are pretty much all of the things you really need to know. Also, if you have a code that you want to save, you will want to create an account, or you will want to sign into your account. So you can see here now, this project is now in my folder here, which there's now a folder, and you can see all of the games that I have made, and then you can like delete them, add new ones, and some of these are like unfinished projects, some of these are uploaded ones. So yeah, that is the basics of how Scratch works. So yeah, thank you for watching this video, and I hope to see you in another video. Goodbye.